Black Myth Wukong, a game that desperately wants to be the next Souls-like contender, while the devs claim it ain't really a Souls-like anyway. Sure, it's got a shiny veneer, those slick graphics that had everyone drooling in the trailers, but let's be real here, once you scrape off that eye candy, you're left with a game that's basically a confused mix of greatness and frustration, like they took Journey to the West and said, what if we made it cooler but also barely coherent? First off, the storyline is basically the most popular Chinese novel but on steroids, or more accurately, a strange cocktail of steroids and tranquilizers. You play as the Destined One, some off-brand version of San Wukong, tasked with collecting relics to revive the original Monkey King. It sounds epic, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. You're schlepping across over-the-top landscapes while defeating bosses with names that sound like someone at the Game Science Studio sneezed. There's a plot line involving ancient relics and spiritual nonsense, but the story doesn't hold your hand. It's kind of like From Software version of go and read the lore if you care, but without half the intrigue or subtlety. And speaking of boss fights, they're visually stunning, but mechanically, it's like they were designed by that one Redditor who believes every fight in a Souls-like should be a life lesson in irritation. Some of the bosses are memorable, like the Tiger Vanguard, your obligatory sword-wielding animal enemy, but others, like the Centipede Guai and that reoccurring frog boss, feel like leftovers from a bad idea pie. It's like the developers were going through the grocery list of Souls-like bosses and got lazy halfway through. Do we really need another giant frog? Is this what we're doing in 2024? Let's talk combat. Game Science claims this is not a Souls-like, but man did they try their best anyway. The game screams Souls-like at every turn, but not even in the fun way. You won't get good and eventually master the combat system. This tries to be a more accessible version of the genre by dashing away left and right with corpse runs and parries, and of course you get a dodging system that's basically off-brand Dark Souls for babies, which might sound like a blessing until you realize how awkward it feels. Instead of tight, responsive combat, you're stuck fumbling around with an unrefined system with a knockoff wannabe God of War aftertaste. Sure, it gives you a dopamine hit when you finally slam a boss's head over with your plank, but half the time you're just guessing whether your attacks will even land or if you'll be eaten alive by one of the game's inconsistent hitboxes. Then there's the world design. They put all that effort into building these grand, mythical landscapes, and it's a shame that most of it is wasted behind invisible walls. Want to explore that scenic-looking cliff? Too bad. It's just another tease from a game that pretends to offer freedom but funnels you down more corridors than a high school hallway. Half the time you're questioning whether an area is actually accessible or just some CGI wallpaper. And of course we can't forget the camera issues. Ah yes, the bane of every gamer's existence, yet somehow still a recurring problem. The camera in Black Myth Wukong seems to have been designed by someone who only ever played the flight simulator. Sure, it works when you stick to that one angle, but the second you move around during a fight it's janky, unpredictable, and determined to ruin your day. But hey, at least it's consistent. Consistently shit. You'll be fighting some demonic suit of armor with human legs. Because of course you will. And suddenly the camera decides it's more interested in that one tree in India than the 12-foot tall boss trying to turn you into a monkey spam. Then there's the progression system. Respecting your character is way too easy. Sure, at first you think how convenient it is, until you realize it's because the game forces you to constantly do it. You pick up a new ability, get excited to use it, and then bam, the very next boss is immune to it. You end up feeling like a guinea pig in the developer's weird little experiment. It's not about mastering a style, it's about changing on a whim, which means there's no real commitment to your build. In theory, it sounds cool, but in execution, it's a grindy mess that makes every victory feel hollow. The game wants to be this grand, epic retelling of a beloved Chinese classic, but instead, it's a decent action game that struggles under the weight of its own ambition. It's got potential, sure, but right now it's little more than a flashy Dark Souls light with some cool boss designs and a lot of empty promises. Game Science has a lot of work to do if they ever want this monkey to climb the proverbial mountain. So yeah, Black Myth Wukong is here, and it's fine. Not great, not terrible. Just another game that looked a lot better in trailer than it does in practice. Although everyone seemed to have very positive attitude towards it, it can't possibly stem from the fact that gaming scene was so bleak in the past year that having a decent attempt at a well-constructed video game just seems like a 10 out of 10 godsend. But I'm sure you can't wait to tell me that in the comments already. If you managed to get through the whole thing this time without sending another constructive criticism in the comments before the 1-minute mark, you have my honest respect. Bear in mind this is not a critique or a review, we're here just to have fun. If you found any of my statements inaccurate or flat out wrong, all I want to say is, alright, turn that button blue and we can pick this conversation up again when I shit all over something else. Be well.